Here's to good friends, the ones we hold dear, the ones who will tell us what we need to hear, the ones who love us, right or wrong, and to all those good friends who give you this song.
Hello again, good friends, and welcome back to The Last Walk, Remember When, with your host, Ron Baumbach. And we're going back in time again to the fun times. So get up, get off your Castro convertible, walk over to your fridge, open up that ice chest, get a cool, refreshing Stewart's orange soda, reach up into the cupboard, grab a chunky bar, sit back, turn on a lava lamp, relax, The Last Walk is back!
Here's to good friends, the ones we hold dear, the ones who will tell us what we need to hear, the ones who love us, right or wrong, and to all those good friends who give you this song.
Today, we're going to think back, or I'm thinking back, to the stores I remember but don't see anymore. Maybe they're still around somewhere, maybe they're in your neighborhood, but I have not seen them in a while. I think of the different ones, and I thank Wikipedia, which is a great site for resourcing, to help me, assist me in this journey, as well as a number of other websites. I think back to some of the places where I got my car fixed years ago. Remember Aid's Auto Supply Store? But I don't see them around much anymore. There was a store called TSS, Times Square Stores, which was very big on Long Island and Queens and New York, I'm sure around the country. They sold many, many, many things, but also they were very big on auto supplies. Then they became a big department store with food in it, etc., and poof, I don't see them anymore. Remember the catalog showrooms, consumer distributors? You get that catalog and you go into before the online shopping started, you go into their store and everything was on display. You would fill out the little form and then suddenly, poof, it would pop up in the back of that big rotary shipping area where you pick up your merchandise. And also a store called, a competitor was called Service Merchandise. These two were pretty big on Long Island, at least, going back in the 70s probably, or 60s, 70s. Very popular, 80s. And then, poof, where'd they go? Maybe they're still around somewhere, but no one's told me about them. And we had Herman's World of Sporting Goods, a really big store in Roosevelt Field Mall, which may have become Sports Authority, which was big. They just went out of business recently. And I think Dick's took over most of the Sports Authority. But there was all these big famous sporting goods stores. The first time my kids and I and my wife went to a Sports Authority, my kids were in heaven. We were on vacation somewhere in the Poconos. As we drove through the Philadelphia area, we saw a store called Sports Authority. And the kids walked in, they were overwhelmed with what they saw. The things that they saw in front of their eyes was unbelievable. For a while, Toys R Us had a place called Kids R Us, selling their clothing. Now, they may still be around, but I haven't seen them recently, maybe because I'm not looking for them. But I remember going there with my wife and picking up things for the grandkids. But years and years ago, when I was a little guy, I remember going with one of my older brothers, Jerry, who was a model for the Montgomery Ward catalog. We went for some photo shoots. And Montgomery Ward was a big store in Manhattan, big store around the country. They also had their famous catalog, as did Sears, as did Penny's, those big stores. But Montgomery Ward was a classic one. Then we had a store called Caldor. Caldor was, I think Kohl's, at least on the island, took over many of the Caldors. Caldor was a big department store that lasted for a number of years, and I haven't seen them anymore. We had Fortunoffs, which sold everything you could think of. Fortunoff seemed to sell. And they were next door to a place called Orbach's over in Westbury in Garden City by Roosevelt Field Mall, where we also had a store called Gertz, Gertz, which later on became Stearns. And I remember one of my mom's favorites was A&S, Abraham and Strauss. They were in Manhattan on, I think, Herald Square. Down in Brooklyn, they were big in Brooklyn, in Garden City, in Hempstead, in Huntington, you name it. A&S was a big staple of our shopping dollar. S. Klein on the square. Remember that store, S. Klein? It was down in Union Square, New York City. Also out Long Island. And Lane's in Lake Success, a very big department store. I mentioned Baumbach's, and we had Mays, M-A-Y-S. I always confuse them with the May department stores. I believe they were two different things. And when you wanted to buy a suit, my friends and I went to Howard Clothing Store because my friend Ken worked in there as a salesman in Roosevelt Field. So our favorite place to go was to go see Ken get measured up for your favorite suit at Howard Clothing Store. Well, one of my all-time favorites, and the one that saved my life, was Robert Hall Clothing Store. They were clothing they last for about 50 years, I believe, Robert Hall. And it was a big store not really that big a store, but a store on Hillside Avenue in New Hyde Park. Basically, I went there one day on Holy Thursday in 1964. The gentleman measured me for a suit and standing on that wooden block that they have in the store. And the guy kept saying, stand up straight, stand up straight. I thought I was. And one thing led to another. He told my parents, bring me to a doctor, which they did. Found that I had a severe case of scoliosis. My numbers were off the wall, off the chart, when no one recognized it. It's amazing how you live with someone every day. But every day you see the same thing, and you don't realize what's going on. And I didn't realize what was going on, but the doctors sure did. And 6 months in bed and 2 surgeries, and years later, knock on wood, thanks to Robert Hall, I'm here. Appreciate it, Bob. Thanks so much for the salesman who helped me out and kept me alive in 1964.
Oh, I've been so lucky and I've been so blessed. In spite of my failings, I've found success. For I've known love and I've known good times, and I have known friendship and written some rhymes.
How about Tom McCann's shoe store and the Kinney shoe stores and the Warner Brothers studio store, which I think was started just to compete against Disney shops, the Disney stores. I don't think the Warner Brothers studio store is still around. If it is, it's not in my area, at least not where I've seen it. A lot of pharmacies, too. We had the Eckerd Corporation, Brooks Pharmacy, and it was one that I knew years ago when I was working in Manhattan. On 42nd Street, I used to see the Rexall drug sign. I always saw Rexall drugs. I wondered what was Rexall all about. And Liggett's, Liggetts. I believe Liggett's was one of the first ones, Mr. Liggett, way back when in the early 1900s, to start the concept of pharmaceutical chains. Is Whalen's still around? Whalen's was a famous store for us. We used to go there, buy a pharmaceutical, Mom would get the prescriptions, get, you name it. If you needed some milk, needed some bakery products, whatever else you needed, toys, etc., was all in Whalen's. Especially they had the tube thing to fix it, to find out if our tubes were broken for our old TV set with those 10,000 tubes in it. You took that that brown thing off the back, pull the tubes out. We run down to Whalen's and test all those tube babies things. That's before we had a place called Circuit City. And I don't know if Circuit City is still around, or Comp USA, or Comp Ad, or Computer City, or how about Crazy Eddie, or The Wiz, an Incredible Universe, J&R, and Lafayette Radio. Lafayette Radio I used to call on those people, and I was always impressed with the sound of the music coming from the Lafayette Radio, because you walked into a room, and they had a sound room, and you could sit back, close your eyes, listen to whatever kind of music you wanted. It was the most awesome sounding sound. I believe it was in the Lafayette Radio stores. I have not seen them in a while, but I miss their sound. And the Warehouse, and Steinberg's, and Video Concepts. Now, when it came to going to variety stores, one of my favorites, and one of yours too probably, was E.J. Corvettes. So we called it Corvettes. all different variations where the name EJ came from. But like, just suffice to say, it was a great store. I did a lot of my Christmas shopping there. A lot of people loved to buy the pretzels on the corner. As you walked into Corvettes, they had a guy outside selling pretzels, as did the Mays had the same thing. Used to be a guy outside selling hot dogs, sausages, etc. And once you walked in, you were in heaven. They had everything you needed was in Corvettes, as was Woolworths. Now, maybe Woolworths is still here, I don't know, but Woolworths is one of the first. In fact, at one time, I believe their building in Manhattan, before the Empire State Building, was the tallest building in the world. And then the Empire State Building was built. But I believe the Woolworth building, maybe I'm wrong, if I am, I apologize, but I believe the Woolworth building at one time was considered the tallest building in the world. But Woolworths had great memories for me. Remember going shopping years ago for souvenirs. I was in Munich, Germany, and I see a Woolworths. I felt like home. I'm walking around, walking to the store. It's like being back in Wilson Park and going into my Woolworths. Same thing. How about McCrory's and J.J. Newberry's, Hudson Brothers, Jamesway, or King's Department Stores, or S.H. Kress, or S.S. Kresge, which I believe became Kmart in the late 70s. A place called Two Guys. I think Two Guys is more known now for hot dogs and hamburgers and french fries, or maybe it's Four Guys, but there was a Two Guys years ago. And W.T. Grant, which is an amazingly large chain, which suddenly I believe is all gone history, gone bye-bye. And we had Woolco. Woolco was a chain opened up by Woolworth for the large items in the stores. I don't think they're around too much. We had some furniture stores that came and went. How about Bombay Company and Castro Convertibles, a wonderful Castro convertible. Maybe they're still around, but I have not seen them in a while. And Levitt's Furniture was one of the a legacy of furniture. For 100 years they were in business, Levitt's Furniture. Linens and Things and Siemens Furniture.
Life is too short, we get only one turn. With luck we find beauty, but we sometimes get burned. But if you've had a true friend, or perhaps love, you've experienced the peace of heaven above.
When I started looking for a job upon graduation at Marist College in 1971, one of the interviews I went to was at F.W. Woolworth. It was downtown Manhattan. They had me along with about 60, 70, 80 other applicants come into a room. We were there for the day, getting interviewed, and I kept thinking, what's my job going to be here? What's going to happen? Well, it was for a corporate type role. And it really seemed inspiring and inquiring, inspiring and invigorating. I really seemed excited with it. But then I kept thinking, maybe there's something different I want to do. And I ended up not taking that path, going a totally different avenue. Then a fellow called me who owned a local hardware store up in Poughkeepsie. He had a vision for a chain of hardware stores all over the country, all over the world. He wanted to be like a company that later on became Home Depot. Well, this guy had the vision to do it, and he asked me to run his local store in Poughkeepsie, which would be the flagship. And I could not picture myself. I didn't know a flathead screwdriver from a what's it called? The other kind of screwdriver. I'm going nuts back then, nuts back now. And I figured, it ain't going to be me, baby. I'm not going to be the one doing that stuff. So I didn't do that. I ended up going into sales instead and did that for 45 years. But back on the stores, my dad spent over 38 years at the A&P. The A&P, the Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, which sadly recently just, I believe, closed its doors, along with Pathmark. And my dad's dad worked for a store called Baumbach. Baumbach was a very big grocery store chain, at least in the New York area, Manhattan, Long Island, etc. All around the island, big food store chain that bit the dust. We had a store called Finest, Food Fair, Giant, and Grand Union. Grand Union was opposite the A&P in our shopping center, one and two anchor stores. And I never knew why they had two of these food stores in the same shopping center. You could either go to the A&P or Grand Union. My dad loved food shopping. He ended up going to both. And Mel's Supermarket, Pantry Pro.